About 11 and a half years ago, on November 13th, 2007, the very first installment of the Assassin's Creed series was released. An open world game set during the Third Crusades with lively cities, interactive environments, and buildings you could climb for God's sakes. Now I already know what you're gonna say.
Chim, why are you making a video on Assassin's Creed 1? The game is so old and is irrelevant.
That's where you're wrong, Samuel. This game is still relevant, goddammit. You see, Ubisoft has already remastered Ezio's storyline and just recently remastered Connor's as well. I don't want to be blatantly obvious here, but that means all the Assassin's Creed games have been ported over to the Xbox One, except the one and only original that started it all.
But Chimp, the game is backwards compatible, so if people wanted to play it, they could just buy it on the 360.
Yes, but wasn't that the case with the other games as well? Maybe a remaster is in the works right now, I don't know. But I do know one thing for sure, and that's that I do not want a remaster. I want an entire remake. I'm not saying that the original is a bad game in any way. No. It has its flaws like any other game. I just simply think that's what the game deserves. Now let's take a trip down memory lane. Throughout Assassin's Creed's hype period, the game was pitted against returning franchises such as Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare and Halo 3, and also stood against others just as new in the same window back in 2006 through 2007. The marketing for this game seemed like it was pretty good, but really bad only once. The only evidence I have to support this is the trailers you can scrounge up on YouTube. And with that said, the trailers for this game are dope as shit. They definitely would have gotten me interested in the game at the time. But oh my god, that gameplay demo can probably cause Ligma.
Okay, well, unfortunately we're dead.
I bet you that's the last time they did live demos. It's a good thing they did better next year. I played Assassin's Creed when I was young and I loved the absolute shit out of it, like many others. I mean, obviously, otherwise we wouldn't have 16 bajillion different Assassin's Creed games. IGN gave this game a 7.5 and GameSpot gave it a what the fuck? How did you come up with that? Well, if you're going by that ratio, you better be giving Halo 3 a 10. I can see how people could try to make an argument saying that it does deserve a rating like that because it was the first to try a concept of scaling buildings in an open world. I don't know, I just can't seem to open my eyes to that. Even when I played the game when I was young, I found the game to be too repetitive, but memorable. Mechanics felt wonky but fun and well polished for its time. And combat way too easy, but so satisfying. Yeah, that shit never got stale, I tell you that. The combat in this game is basically a kill move porno.
Chip Chula, spin that montage shit!
Or you can just throw them off the edge of cliffs and buildings. If you haven't played the game yet, then you probably never will, let alone even finish it in this day and age. Which is why I've taken the liberty to summarize and review the game in its entirety. So, let's do this thing. When you boot up the game, before you even reach a menu of any kind of cinematic plays, at the time, if you were anticipating this game to come out, it should look familiar, because it's one of the trailers for the game's marketing campaign. Okay, that's cool. That's a really realistic bird right there. Ooh, he's a sneaky snoo. Whoa, wait a second, what the fuck? Okay, so after that's done, you can start the game. It's really disorienting and confusing, to say the least. What are these things supposed to be? They look like mannequins. Well, what is this Skyrim shit? And not only that, but they don't stop getting in your way. And while this happens, you hear a mysterious voice who I still don't even know who was. I don't know, it speaks in a riddle, and frankly, I don't even care. The next scene starts.
People with epilepsy have recurring and unpredictable seizures. A seizure is a period where cells in the brain, or neurons, are synchronously active, or active at the same time, when they're not supposed to be.
You're in a market with mannequins everywhere, and then you start to hear the voices of a female insisting to pull you, the player, out, and a male trying to shut that shit down. Flashing lights and images of buildings and structures appear on the screen while you run around in a closed area, and then you wake up.
Bastards!
Your name is Desmond Miles, probably one of the most unamusing characters in the game, that is only cool because his great relatives are badass. You quickly get the gist of what's going on from some exposition from the young woman named Lucy Stillman and the old fuck named Warren Vidic. They kidnapped Desmond from his civilian life of being a bartender because he used to be an assassin, and so were his ancestors. They lay him down in the Animus, a machine that can access one's ancestors' memories through the one using it. They hope to learn something from Desmond that only his genetic code can unlock, and with some great gameplay design is forced to comply to stay alive. You lie back down and Lucy explains that to get to the memory that they need to see, Desmond needs to work his way through the events that took place as his ancestor, Altair, a highly skilled assassin of the Third Crusade. And then you start to play the game.
Very nice words, but happens to be wrong.
I'm uploading the tutorial program now.
You have to go through the most drawn out tutorial I've ever seen in a video game that is not creative in any shape or form and takes 8 minutes to complete. And hints still show up for the rest of the game, so I don't even know why they even bothered. It would have been better if the Ubisoft janitor told you how to play the game through an Xbox mic, and then you start the game. The next scene opens up with a shot of an old man who's randomly in the only cave in the entire game, and Altair comes up behind the dude and just kills him. I think it's because he played too much
Grand Auto Theft and Halo.
You are accompanied by 2 assassins, and one admires the amount of skill it took to kill that old man, while the other is like, dude, what the fuck? The mission is discussed with one, and the player learns that Templars, a secret organization whose goal is world control, are after the same treasure you're after deep in the cave, called the Apple of Eden. You get to the treasure, and as you and the other assassins are diddling their own assholes, a Templar by the name of Robert de Sab enters the room with his men and gets to it first. Altair decides to take matters into his own hands and attempts to assassinate the Templar later then and there. But he is reckless, and he gets overpowered and thrown into the next room, crashing through debris and blocking you from returning to the treasure room, with both your enemy and allies still inside. You continue through the cave and return back to the home of the assassins in Masyaf, and proceed through the town as characters stop and talk to you for the only time in the game. You then go inside the castle and speak to the Grandmaster, Al-Mualim. I'm just gonna call him the Grandmaster. You talk to him and tell him that the mission was a failure. He gets furious with you because you didn't do your job, which is understandable. And then, surprise, one of the assassins you were with on the mission, the one that criticized and advised against your decisions in the cave, comes back and is pretty banged up. His left arm is all bloodied. He returns alone because his brother died during the scuffle, and he shows your ass up because he has the treasure with him. And the Templars followed you back and are at the city gates. The Grandmaster says there's no time for punishment and orders you to help at the gates. You make your way there and learn how the combat works, and you have everything available to you. For now, you got the long sword, short blade, throwing knives, counterattacks, ledge grabs, etc. You get to the gates and the Templars flood the city, so you're forced to retreat and use a different route, which is when you do your first leap of faith to flank the enemy and dwindle the enemy forces, and in doing so, force them to retreat. After the successful defense of Masyaf, you report back to the Grandmaster. Now you see here, Altair broke all 3 of the tenets of the creed back in the cave. The first, stay your blade from the innocent. Second, hide in plain sight. And third, never compromise the Brotherhood. So the Grandmaster imparts justice. And then you snap back to reality. Look, I'm all for being angry about breaking my immersion and all that, but I look at the present day missions as another area to be immersed in, and to be honest, it's one of my favorite parts of the game. By conversing with Lucy, the player learns of the people holding Desmond captive, and it's a drug corporation by the name of Abstergo. But they're more than just a corporation. Later on in the game, you learn that Abstergo is the present day Templar with a mask on. You feel trapped and you're able to do some detective work, like steal Vidic and Lucy's pen, so you can access their computers and discover some lore about the Assassin's Creed universe and what each person is going through by reading their emails. The Assassin's Creed universe is as unique as any other, and the emails clarify that with a bit of reading. As the game progresses, more and more emails fill the computers about situations, for better or for worse, such as a plague that wiped out 96% of Africa's population 6 years prior, and also mass migration from US to Mexico, and intense violence at the border that left 300 dead and over 1,000 injured. And might I say, it's kind of ironic to be reading about that in 2019. There is also an entire conversation between Lucy and an unknown party discussing the plans for Abstergo's satellite launch on December 21st, where I think what they're gonna do is put the apple in the satellite and launch it out in space and activate it to control everyone in the world. A rescue is also hinted, along with a subliminal message in one email saying we will be there soon. Vidic also has an email sent by Lucy that talks about a Subject 16 and how he was in the Animus too long and succumbed to the bleeding effect, where memories of your ancestors collide with the present day projection of reality, which caused his death, and Lucy advises against Vidic pushing any more subjects to their limits again, but he doesn't care because you'll find that email in the deleted items, as well as Lucy trying to find out what happened to her friend Lilia that used to work at Abstergo and mysteriously died 4 years prior. Also, if you pay attention and read carefully, you can find out what the dates are in present day. And with that said, Assassin's Creed 1's present day is set in early September of 2012. You're welcome. You can also get to know more about both Lucy and Desmond by talking to her after every sequence you complete, learning stuff like how there is actually multiple pieces of Eden located around the world, just the locations are unknown, and make a new friend in the process. Not like it lasts or anything. You can even learn the password to the conference room and read the emails on the computer in there to find out what Abstergo is really after. Or you could just go to sleep and say, fuck it, I'm gonna die anyway, let's get the day over with. When you hop back into the Animus, Altair wakes up in front of the Grandmaster and is given a second chance, but it comes at a cost. You are demoted and lose all your weapons and absolutely every skill you've learned over the years with the Creed. I can understand the weapons, but also lose the ability to counter enemies and the ability to ledge grab while in midair. Did this Mufok suffer brain damage when he got stabbed in the abdomen? There's no skill tree to progress through. You just gain equipment and skills as the game progresses, and when that runs out, you just gain damage boosts for each weapon. The system is average at best, mainly because the weapons kind of get old fast and some tactics are really forgettable. It's easiest to use counter and combo attacks, while dodging and using heavy attacks was left on the back burner for me. Not to mention you are forced to do a tutorial for each new skill after you gain it. Anyway, the Grandmaster claims there's a traitor to the Creed in their midst. He let the Templars into Masyaf, but everyone knows who it is except for you, and you are instructed to figure him out and bring him forward. By blending in with the crowds and hiding in plain sight, you'll manage as long as you can get through them awful mission design. To blend, all you do is hold A, or the legs button, and you walk at a slow pace with your hands folded together and the guards lose sight of you. I'm pretty sure you don't have to be in a crowd or anything. Now that I think about it, how can anyone hide in plain sight with white robes, a belt of throwing knives, a sword, and a dagger? If anything, you would think they'd stick out like a sore thumb. Even with all that on, you don't really need to blend. You can just run around like a madman and no one minds, as long as you don't bump into the guards. The only times you would need to blend is when you want to use the monk assets, and the informer contracts, which I will talk about real quick. The side missions consist of pickpocketing, eavesdropping, and interrogating at the moment. Later on, there's informer contracts that act like a challenge, but are really just annoying as fuck, and pissed me off because I was failing for the dumbest reasons. Shit. No! Are you fucking kidding me? Fuck these crackhead motherfuckers. Seriously, who put these crackhead motherfuckers in the game? Good thing you could kill them, no repercussions. Back to the matter at hand. They're basically assassination contracts, but instead of a pigeon with a note, these lazy, pathetic plebs blackmail you into doing it for them, for information as pay.
Knowledge is power.
The other three are pretty self-explanatory. Pickpocketing, you stand blatantly obvious about 10 feet away from your target. Unless there's a crate, then in that case you can make the camera angle look cool. But you listen to them talk, and when they're done you follow the one guy who you need to follow and steal what they got. And they notice 0.2 seconds after and decide not to look at who did it, even though you look suspicious as fuck the whole time. And eavesdropping, you just sit on a bench and listen to dialogue. But to be fair, the dialogue and voice acting is really good, so there's incentive to get through it. As for interrogation, instead of taking a Splinter Cell type of approach, cough cough, same companies, you need to beat them up with fighting mechanics equivalent to Skyrim. You make them get on their knees for a cock meat sandwich. I mean, they tell you what you need to know and you kill them so they don't tell anybody else. And it's so funny because you can literally do this in front of city guards and not get noticed. The soundtrack that plays during these moments is very ominous and I kind of like it. But with the lack of gameplay variation, it's hard to enjoy it altogether. And oh my god, I almost forgot about the flag collecting missions. I guess that shows how bland the side missions are. These are labeled as informer contracts too, and you have to jump around and collect all the flags on the map in a given time frame. And the funny part about that is the guy you talk to says, "Oh, I dropped them all, or I misplaced them all, or some other bullshit of the sort. When you get done interrogating the guy who did it, you bring him to the Grandmaster and he kills him and you get your sword back. You are now worthy of taking on a much larger task, larger than you even realize it, and the Grandmaster gives you the names of 9 people you need to kill in order to protect the Holy Land from their image of the future. You kill each one in 3 different cities available to roam around in: Akka, Damascus, and Jerusalem. Personally, I think Jerusalem is the most memorable for this reason only. To get to them, you need to travel through the kingdom if you haven't been to them yet. And the kingdom is this big open area that you just ride through. There is a lot of collectibles here as well, and the areas you stumble upon are just awesome to look at. But thank God you can fast travel because the kingdom is fairly large. But not only that, I absolutely love riding the horse, and I think the white one looks the best with the assassin robes. However, every guard in the kingdom doesn't like it when you try to travel faster on your horse in a large open area. I didn't know speeding tickets existed 1,000 years ago. Like seriously, these guys chase you everywhere you go. You can't even pay attention to the soundtracks that play because for one, you hear this the whole time. And 2, the loud and upbeat music plays all the time because the game thinks you're in combat when the guards notice you. When you reach the cities for the first time, the game shows off this incredible horizon shot of the city you're about to enter. You can see iconic buildings poking over the walls and you say to yourself, I want to climb that. And sure enough, you can. There really is such a sense of scale invoked when you climb structures, especially the highest point in the game. And even walking through the streets while people live their lives as sounds of crowds and animals surround you, even though there's no animals. There's some people that rant in the streets about the war and try to spread the word of what's going on, basically being propaganda of the time period. It all comes together nicely and immerses you instantly. To locate and assassinate your target, you need to head over to the Assassin's Bureau in the middle of each city and talk to the person that supervises it, because you need consent, whatever that means. Each person is unique in their own way. One praises you, the other mocks you and doubts you, and the last one is just an asshole to you. Oh wait, that one's missing his left arm. Wait a second, that's the guy you left behind in the cave. That would make sense why he's an asshole. He's my favorite character, by the way. The head of the bureau will tell you to find out information about the target's whereabouts, what he's doing, and where he's gonna be by doing the side missions I mentioned earlier. And they also give you hints on where to find those side missions. None of that is really necessary though. You'll miss a bit of dialogue, but you can just skip going to the bureau if you do all the side missions first. There's 6 memories of information to uncover for each memory block, and when you complete the memory, you hear this iconic chime. But you really only need to do 2 or 3. Either way, somehow you know everything there is to know about your target. To find those side missions, you need to reveal the map. And to reveal the map, you need to reach viewpoints dotted across the city. Climb your way up and synchronize, and you're good to perform a leap of faith into the haystack at the bottom. These are really fun to climb, even though a lot are the same. Sometimes you get a gem that requires a little extra movements, and I found myself missing them when I got them all. And I do not care about the unrealistic haystack at the bottom, and how you would die if that was real. The game already showed its risk with the first leap of faith you perform with the one guy who broke his leg. And before I go any further, may I say, fuck those roof guards. There's also citizens you can save that are getting harassed by guards, and they become allies for you when you run from the guards. And they're really useful. Now, I did just read something that said that this was common for guards to do, but there is little to no context about why you should even save these guys in the first place. Because the dialogue that is uttered by the guards is accusing the citizen you need to save of stealing. Not only that, but here's something I found funny. 77% of all the Save the Citizen missions you come across in the game that you need to save is a whammon. Oh, I can see the articles now if this game was made in 2019. Assassin's Creed is sexist because of their damsels of distress and its portrayal of women. Ah, shit, I probably just gave someone an article to write. There is men you can save too, but they're all monks, and the guards like to fuck with them, so yeah, I can understand defending them. But I have no information about the thief claim except that the person is a whammon. famine, and I guess something naughty is suggested after you save the girl. And another thing that bothers me a bit, the main thing around this game is not killing civilians. That's what you don't want to do, otherwise you desynchronize, and you have to restart from a previous save. Well, what about those poor merchants in the market stalls just trying to make a living? You can literally throw guards into the stalls, and they break, killing everyone around them, including the merchant. Press F in the chat to pay respects. Golly. I guess there's a bright side in all that, because when you get thrown, you're safe no matter what. Report back to the Bureau when you're ready to hunt down your target, and you rest up and get the job done the next day. All the targets are iconic as fuck, interesting and brutal in their own ways. Everyone has a cutscene that introduces them. Each one puts you in a different situation, and things get intense each time. The cutscenes are great and have a very unique style to them. The soundtrack is really subtle but intense whenever, how you would say, bass kicks in, and with the awesome dialogue and voice acting in the mix, these moments make for great ones. However, it is technically most of the game. It's, how do you say, the perfect mix of pornos. You got the cutscene porno and the kill move porno, and I can also technically consider a kill move a cutscene as well, so the game is technically a cutscene porno. Ah, fuck it, I'll leave the montage in. Personally, I wish the glitches weren't in the game. No, not these glitches. That only happened to me once out of 15 hours. I'm talking about the white animus ripples that show up in the cutscenes and require you to press any button and it will activate a different camera angle. And yes, I know if I was paying attention, I could see the hints pop up, but who's really paying attention to those when you're trying to listen to dialogue? They should have just been the cutscenes, because like I said, they make them look far better. Speaking of cutscenes, remember how I said each target has a cutscene? Well, Tamir repeatedly stabs and slices a guy in the middle of the street and throws him in a fountain. Garnier de la Plus does wild experiments on random poor people and whores. Talal does slave trade and expects your arrival. Abu Naku poisons his guests cause he doesn't like getting criticized. William of Montfret is quite literally a drill instructor, but instead of getting IT'd, your punishment is death. Majidin has a god complex and enjoys killing people. Sabran gets super paranoid and kills a monk in cold blood for thinking he's an assassin. Jubayer Alakam burns up sacred texts and knowledge. And a person. And finally, Robert de Sade. When you kill the targets, you go into this other plane of existence. You hear their side of the story and then you realize their goals are the same as yours. The only difference is the way they go about trying to reach that goal. And these moments in the game are worth getting to. Although it's really much of the same gameplay loop up until you get to Robert de Sade. In addition, all 9 targets are named after real people during the Third Crusade, so you can look them up if you desire. However, their personas are tinkered with a bit for story purposes. Or are they? You then have to escape the guards. You can either A, combat them and give yourself some room to breathe, or B, book it. Dodging civilians so they don't knock you over, bobbing and weaving the crackheads, diving and swinging through market stalls to avoid the crowds, and jumping over guards that can stop you in your tracks using crates, wooden beams, and ledges alongside of the buildings to get away. Don't get caught climbing for too long or you'll get stoned. Get stones thrown at you. And them shits hurt. There's even a chase cam that is kind of useless. To really lose them, you need to use one of 3 different hiding spots that are dotted everywhere. Haystacks and benches are on ground level and are great for when you round corners, and gardens are always located on roofs of buildings. Break their line of sight and hide in one of those spots quickly, and these poor excuses of guards won't even try to search for you. Even though if you were in their shoes, you probably see Altair perfectly fine.
Oh man!
After you lose the guards, you are now able to enter the Assassin's Bureau and conclude the mission. And then you report back to the Grandmaster. After each kill, you have conversations with him about why and what you're doing and asking other questions of the sort. Kind of portraying this sense of doubt up until the targets are revealed to be Templars, while he flexes the treasure on the table and sends you on to the next. So after you kill 8 of the targets, you are now in the final act of the game, and this is where things get juicy. You're hunting down Robert de Sade, the final target on your list. When you reach him, he's attending a funeral with other crusaders, and if you're paying any attention, you'll see it. The funeral comes to a halt because they were expecting you, and you fight multiple enemies. You kill Robert, and plot twist, it was a decoy. A woman, in fact, and on top of that, She snitches and rats Robert out and tells Altair where he's going. Since you hindered the Templars' plans to take the Holy Land, their grip has slipped and Robert rides to Arsif to go ahead and speak with King Richard and Saladin in an effort to turn both armies against the Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. Why would they do that, you might ask? Well, the 8 targets you killed before were important to both sides of the conflict. Altair spares her because she was not the intended target, but that doesn't really make sense because A, you actually kill her, and B, what about every city guard and interrogation suspect you killed before? They weren't intended targets, so why did they die? Ah, I know why, Altair, you sly dog. Damn, Robert, you should have saved your money on the decoy. You ride to Arsif and a battle is already underway. The Crusaders are marching while being shot at by arrows, and it doesn't even look like they're phased, but oh well. You continue and fight your way through enemies until you reach King Richard and Robert de Sable. You plead your case and King Richard doesn't know who to believe, so he tells you two to fight by letting the gods decide. You fight all of Robert's men because he's a pussy, and then you fight him and kill him, and in doing so reveals the truth. It wasn't just the 9 targets that found the apple, but 10, and the 10th person is none other than the Grandmaster of the Assassin's Creed himself. This whole time you were tying up loose ends for him, killing the people that opposed the Grandmaster's goal, and his goal is to control the Holy Land for himself. Not for the Templars, nor the Assassins. You converse with King Richard after the fight, and before you head back to the Masyaf to confront Grandmaster Al-Mualim about the information you have just received, you're yanked out of the Animus to witness the last of the Assassins get killed over the intercom. Your only chance of getting out of there is gone, and Desmond already knows he's gonna die. When Vidic leaves, Lucy consoles Desmond and tells him to stay hopeful, and reveals she is an assassin too, by showing him she's missing her ring finger. This is where I started to question the logic with all this. And it does make sense, but pretend you haven't played the other games. So, Abstergo does background checks for all their employees. That's a given. The Templars know what the Assassins are, and they know what the Hidden Blade is, and that the Assassins sacrificed their ring finger to use it. So why hire someone with a missing ring finger? I'm showing my restraint on my next point, but I'll save it for Assassin's Creed 2. But that alone should have been a red flag, especially after he sleeps on it. Vidic slaps you in the face with a meat stick for the final time, and you get back in the Animus to wrap things up. You return back to Masyaf and things are strange. Everyone you pass on the way up to the fort seems to be in a trance of some kind. They don't make sense and the Brotherhood becomes hostile, and your one-armed friend arrives to save the day with you. He leaves to draw the enthralled assassin's attention away from you while you confront the Grandmaster. You walk out into the courtyard and the Grandmaster traps you. He has the apple in his hand and it's activated, and he uses a bunch of illusions to combat you because apparently Altair has the ability to resist the apple. Remember when the Grandmaster flexed the apple on the table in the previous cutscenes? He was actually trying to see if it worked on you. The Grandmaster pits you against images of the 9 targets you killed and 9 versions of the Grandmaster himself, and then he fights you one-on-one and teleports around until you beat him. And on his deathbed you tell him you're gonna destroy the apple, and he doubts that. He dies, you approach the apple to destroy it, and something holds you back. Probably an invisible wall. The apple begins to project something. Earth. And it's not flat. Blips start to pop up, and the other assassins regroup with you, and you hear Vidic from the present day exclaim, "We got it!" And you get pulled out of the Animus. Vidic and his higher-up discuss what was discovered. They have the locations of the other pieces of Eden. Abstergo found what they're looking for and don't require Desmond anymore. But Lucy saves the day and changes the boss man's mind, and as they exit the room, Desmond feels a surge of ancestral power come over him. He uses Eagle Vision and sees demonic markings on the ground leading to his room. You activate Eagle Vision in the room and you see this. It's actually blood-written messages from Subject 16, the person who used the Animus before you, and the credits roll. And the game is over. After the credits are done, you resume as Desmond and you're free to hop back into the Animus to either replay specific sequences or do the shittiest endgame activities ever. And that would consist of scrounging up the last achievements you need to unlock, which would mean collecting all the flags. Each city in the kingdom has 100 and Masyaf has 20, 420 in total. Doing this will probably take you 4 to 5 hours to complete, depending on where you go for a guide. I recommend Assassin's Creed interactive maps versus videos in my opinion, but you do you. Literally everything is bad about doing this shit, except maybe the interesting buildings you would probably climb on the way. First of all, that stupid chime happens every time you collect one of them. So by the time you are completely done the game, you will have heard this chime over 500 times. Second of all, I think I literally drove myself to insanity collecting these things because God forbid you miss a single one. I've already wasted 6 or 7 hours doing this crap, and that's time I will never get back. There's also 60 Templars to kill that are dotted across the land, but those guys are no challenge whatsoever if you use the Hidden Blade counterattack. If you do all that, then you're done, and I wouldn't ever touch the game again. I love Assassin's Creed 1. It set a great foundation of what the series became, and Altair is a badass character, and I wish we learned more about him. Now, I haven't played Revelations yet, and I know he's in that one, and I'll get to it later. Now, I personally know people out there that will buy the game again for better graphics. However, I literally just did this. In fact, I'm pretty sure a lot of us have. This game was free for the month of November with Xbox Live's Games with Gold. I will not buy this game again if it's just a remaster, and I hope some people are with me on that one, whether you watch this video or not. For Ubisoft to resell me the original Assassin's Creed title, it can't be exactly like the original. And look, I know people don't like it when you make a change to such an iconic game, but it's way past its time, and personally, I don't even think it held up well against the titles it competed with during its time. I mean, look at Halo 3. That game had a story, multiplayer, Forge, and Assassin's Creed 1 just had its story. Fantastic writing, by the way. Maybe this is a perfect opportunity to reintroduce Assassin's Creed multiplayer to a new generation. Do any of y'all remember that junk? Dude, I'm hyped for that now that I just thought of that. That's something I can see. And me just thinking of that made me look to see if AC3 Remastered had multiplayer. Spoiler, it doesn't. Yeah, that kind of makes me mad. There's so much potential with Altair's character, and with so much power on these consoles nowadays, there's no excuse. Why not add a bunch of caves here and there in the kingdom? Or create a fleshed out progression system, maybe adding mechanics in the game that weren't thought of in the original, but added later on, such as double assassinations or higher air assassinations. Add shops to the game, have a blacksmith make different weapons for you to use, different outfits. For the love of God, please make those side missions better, because what's already there just won't cut it. Refine the climbing system. It's not bad, it's just you tend to get stuck a lot. It's much faster to just find a nearby ladder. Oftentimes when trying to jump around, I found myself going where I didn't want to jump. For some reason, that really showed around water. Hey, actually, tell you what, I won't care if the climbing's the same if we are allowed to swim. How about that? You guys remember how Brotherhood started? It kind of started the same way. The team tried to go ahead and skip to the final sequence, but the memory was so unstable it forced the traditional method. Maybe do a little something like that. Scrap that awful ass tutorial and just let us play the game. Do not give us those flags to collect again, or I might just shoot myself multiple times in the head with the BB gun. Maybe make it to where you can buy horses or whatever, like Assassin's Creed Origins. And finally, give us that freaking crossbow y'all showed us in the trailer. All in all, just modernize the title so that you can sell it for this generation. Nobody knows if Ubisoft is even working on something like that, or if they're just gonna make a quick cash grab and only retexture the game like AC Ezio Collection or AC3, but I really hope they're being smart over there. It's a fat chance, but maybe they might see this video. Who knows? This game started it all, and it shouldn't be treated like just another game. Incentivize me to buy this game again, and I will buy it. Until then, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Tell me what you guys think. What would you like to see? If you liked the video, you liked it, but if you didn't, tell me what's up in the comments, or don't. I don't really care. Either way, this is Chimp Chula signing out. I'll catch you topside.